military industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Fear itself. Fear itself. Fear itself. Where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
My prepper brothers and sisters, you've arrived at the bunker. Grab a cup of joe, a stout tea, or maybe your favorite adult beverage. This is the prepper's place for open discussion on whatever the hell we want. Brought to you whatever the hell way we want. This is the new format of Top's Bunker. So sit down, kick back, post up, relax, and welcome to the bunker.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Military industrial complex.
And we as a people will get to the promised land.
We will make America strong again, proud again, safe again. We will make America great again.
Preppers, survivalists, off-gridders, homesteaders, and the like. Welcome to Top's Bunker, a podcast for preppers. Email shtf@topsbunker.com, website topsbunker.com. Don't forget to check the show notes on your podcast player for valuable links and extra info on this episode. Want to thank you all for joining us. We've got a great show for you. Tonight, we're talking with special guest Oklahoma State Representative Jay Steagall about the importance of radio comms during an SHTF Grid-Down Situation. Now, to be clear, we won't be nerding out or going into the weeds with tech talk or inner workings or specs on this episode. Just an easy listening and hopefully entertaining discussion on the roles these types of radios serve when communication with the outside world goes offline. Because the time will come, it always has and it always will, when the lights go out, when the hum of the air conditioning dies, when your phone becomes a paperweight. In that moment, the silence will be deafening. Some people will panic at that exact moment, but most others will work it out in their head. Give it 30 minutes, maybe an hour, they'll have the power back up, as if we knew who they really were. But when that 24-hour mark arrives and there's still no power, no phone, no creature comforts, that's when most of the rest of us start to panic, including me. The difference is that panic, for me, is my trigger. It's my brain coming to terms with reality and switching my thought process to survival, because I'm always prepped. The readiness box is checked. Now it comes down to what I know and what I've practiced. It's go time. It's pure survival starting now. You've got all the preps, or do you? Let's see. Shelter, water, food, meds, first aid, all the toilet paper you can rip off the shelves the last time someone cried wolf, and defense. Hell, you even have offense as well. And don't forget that you have your support team, family, friends, neighbors, your network. Or do you? Are you sure there's there? I mean, are they walking distance away? Maybe next door? Chances are no, they're not. Maybe they're down the road a bit, across town, across the county, or the state. Maybe they're even across country. In a grid-down world, information is survival. The ability to call for help, to gather intel, to connect with your team, that's not a luxury. That's your lifeline. Cell towers down, internet down, satellites can't be reached. What's left? Voices and signals of the prepared that will be carried throughout the airwaves. Today we're talking about radios, the heartbeat of survival communications. Shortwave, ham, walkies, big rigs, small rigs, even the Frankenstein kits pieced together with good old-fashioned redneck engineering. It doesn't really matter what you're running. What's important is how important this prep is in your kit. So let's talk about it.
We lose internet, but I don't know, for a day every other week.
Yeah, seems like a lot.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous. So I don't know. They keep knocking out this time they took out the whole box, I guess, is what one guy said. He lives in the neighborhood, works for AT&T. So,
Hey, Jay, you on?
Hey, I'm up.
What's going on, man?
I don't know, man. Nobody tells me anymore.
I think you better know. You better know something.
Well, here's what I do know. It takes a big chicken to pull a train.
It does.
Well, hey, first, thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, so the last time I spoke with you was, I believe, I'm not mistaken, was it before the election?
I think it was.
Yeah. What do you think about his presidency so far? Be as negative or positive as you want, man.
Yeah, well, I think the majority of Americans that voted for Trump for president this term got what they asked for out of his first 100 to 110 days. And I mean, he delivered a lot of goods during that time. Very, very quick. It seemed like on day one, he was, hitting the ground running, signing executive orders to do the things that he promised Americans that he was going to do. I think the hurdle right now for the administration is answering for things that they said they were going to deliver, but haven't yet, such as the Epstein file situation. What does that really look like? And of course we can go down the conspiracy trail on what's really going on with that entire situation. But I think the underlying issue with Americans in regard to the Epstein file situation is they don't have any answers on it. And the administration really hasn't delivered a lot of answers on it either. So, it kicks the door open for either more conspiracies or firming up some that folks might already have. But I think, if the administration wants to improve upon its favorabilities, then, it's going to have to look for answers in situations like the Epstein files.
I don't remember much of anybody talking much about the Epstein files until recently. I have always been interested in what's going on with that whole thing, and I wanted his to roll. But there's also been other things like I think President Trump's doing exactly what he said he was going to do for the most part, and for the reason why I voted for him. I'm not happy about the drone situation going on that he said he would have answers for, and then out of the blue just said nope, nothing to see here. That pissed me off straight up. I didn't like the fact that they dropped the Epstein files so quickly. That kind of brings up some questions for me. Does it outweigh the good though? No, it doesn't. I think he has he's delivered a crap load. I mean, more than any president I remember in my lifetime, that's for sure. I'm a little upset that he's not able to solve the Ukraine situation. If I was him, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Other than going outright war with Russia, I'm not sure how you solve that at this point. But he did say over and over again he was going to solve that week one, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, it's a difficult position to put yourself in as president. That would have been a difficult position for any other military power in the world to say, hey, we're going to go fix this problem. It's as simple as making a phone call. I wish that were the case. We'd probably be trading lead with far fewer enemies if that was the case.
That's true.
I applaud him for, taking a strong stance on wanting to put an end to that because it's in everybody's best interest. Well, except for the Mick, but it's in everybody else's best interest for the war to stop. At the same time, I didn't really expect him to be able to stop that only because of my faith in how I understand how grace is given. And I do not believe that God gives us grace to solve conflict between two other people. That conflict has to be solved between them, which is why, it's easy for us to explain why we get involved in wars to begin with. There's always been a conflict between two or more other parties where we've interjected ourselves, i.e. World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War. You pick your poison. There were two other parties there in a pissing match before we got involved.
You know, that's an interesting take. I didn't think about it the way that you just did. Somebody would be blessed enough to be able to help the two sides talk.
Yeah, it's always good to have a mediator, and a mediator doesn't necessarily solve the problems. They can help guide the discussion so that the two interested parties can come to their own conclusion that it would be better for them to agree with what the mediator is trying to do. But ultimately, it's those two parties that have to make the agreement with or without the mediator.
What an agreement that would be, though. Think about it, though. What has been lost so far. What would you ask for? Would you say we get to, Russia gets to keep some of what they've already taken? Do they give everything up completely and just go home? I mean, it's a big ask.
Sure. Yeah. And now stepping in as a mediator and having to negotiate all those things can also put you in a really weird situation should those two other entities decide to become allies after the whole thing is over and be pissed off at you because of the way they got treated in the whole thing.
Yeah, and throw China into the mix and we're screwed.
Yeah. It's a really weird situation, one that has to be handled delicately, obviously. And I'm not all poo-poo on us getting involved in situations where our national security is threatened or our way of life is threatened or our interests abroad are threatened. By no means do I think we need to maintain anything less than a neutral position. But even Alexander Hamilton in the Federalist Papers would argue that you have to have a really strong military just to maintain neutrality.
That's interesting right there.
And I didn't voice my opinion as much as I probably could have. I get that a bully was picking on the smaller guy, and that's usually when the U.S. jumps in. But the amount of taxpayer money that we spent on that war just kills me. To me, it just seems like a huge waste, especially since the war is still going on and all those people are still dead.
Yeah, and that's the dirty side of war. No matter how much money is pumped into it, lives get lost. Innocent civilians are going to perish as a result of collateral damage.
Yeah, and I'm not real comfortable with the Ukrainian government anyway. How much of that money ended up in people's pockets? I don't know.
Yeah. How corrupt are they? What are they actually doing with our taxpayer dollars? They don't have a fiduciary responsibility like our elected officials, making sure that our tax dollars are spent appropriately.
Our own Congress can't even do a good job at it. We sure know they're not doing a good job with it.
Believe me, our federal government has not cornered the market on irresponsible spending.
Right.
I think we all know what they're doing with that money. All right. Well, we're bringing Jay Steagall on today, and we're going to talk about the Shit Hits the Fan Communications or Shit Hits the Fan Radio. He is a subject matter expert in this field, teaches classes to people who want to communicate when the grid's down. We're glad to have him here and lucky actually to have him because he's a wealth of knowledge, and a lot of people out there in the prepper world and the survivalists, this is a weak link they have. They might own a $20 Baofeng radio or some kind of radio they bought at Walmart and they might not know how to use it. So our goal isn't really how to teach you how to use it on this episode, but more to, go over the capabilities, some of the limitations, capabilities, and why you need to use them.
This radio communications piece is really, really important when it comes to, the survivor mindset, and a key piece in a kit, in any kit. Buddy and I have a background of, Army recon. I got tired of walking everywhere, so I went over to the Air Force about 7 years into this. But the thing that I walked away with out of being a scout was knowing that the most dangerous piece of equipment on that battlefield was the radio. As far as dangerous to our enemy. It was also dangerous against us. So the communications was so vital to the success or failure of a mission that a lot of times the RTO became the most important person on the battlefield. So to get involved, to your question, Keith, to get involved in the radio world, really, the first step is go buy a radio. There's really inexpensive options out there for folks. There's the small $20 Baofeng type programmable radios for those that are interested in diving off into that. There's also the handheld GMRS walkie-talkie type radios or FRS radios that you can buy at almost any big box store for not a lot of money. And then there's plenty of online options as well. But I think the key piece here is just to understand that you're going to need something. And the fact that that handheld radios are very prolific here in the United States helps us understand what kind of network we might have available should our traditional communications systems go down, even if it's just for a short while. These radios can serve not just as a two-way communication piece, but they can also serve as a very valuable tool for listening into local weather or listening to information coming off of a repeater or other transmitting station. So there's a lot of things that these radios can do for us in maintaining communications with other folks that may be beyond shouting distance, So anyway, I would encourage anyone that doesn't have a radio, just go buy something. Either jump online and look for, these $25 or $30 Baofeng radios, just pick one, or go buy a good GMRS radio. Midland makes a lot of options for not a lot of money. And of course, I would always encourage, if you're going to buy one, buy two. One is none, two is one type deal.
And you gotta talk to somebody too.
Yeah. Not a lot of people, not everybody wants to listen to me talk, but it'd be nice if someone was listening as I was talking, Yeah. But anyway, these become very, very important tools for, down communications scenario. So Buddy and I got to witness this firsthand out in Eastern Tennessee last October, November, when Hurricane Helene went through that area. There was a small community that had been cut off from the rest of the world because of the floods. The roads were washed out. There's no way in or out, and getting in there on foot was extremely dangerous as well. So there was no passage to get to this community with a vehicle, four-wheel vehicle, two-wheeled vehicle, side-by-side, horses, mules. Trekking in there on foot was about the only way to do that. But the outside world would have to know to go there to begin with. But because there was one individual in that community that had one of these little $25, $30 Baofeng radios and a basic understanding of how to use the thing, he was able to communicate with a ham operator outside of that little community and was able to get those folks some assistance. And so we had recon teams that would show up and with another organization, Grindstone Ministries. They rigged up a rope system and found a way to get in there on foot, and they were delivering food, water, medical supplies, and then that evolved into working helicopter transport for all those supplies, and exfilling things like sewage and waste, trash. There's all these sanitation needs that have to be addressed in that scenario as well. So without that one little radio, these people would have been in a lot worse shape. One dude in a community of about 200 people. Very, very important piece.
Little $20 radio, he saved countless lives. I don't know. There were 60, 80 people in that town, maybe more. I don't know.
I thought the count was closer to 200. Maybe it's a little lower, but
yeah.
The point we're both making here is that is the perfect example of the situation we're talking about, where travel may not be an option, but I might have the ability to get a radio signal out and hope that somebody else out there is listening. So anyway, that's why I would encourage anybody just to go buy a radio. Go get that piece of kit first. As soon as you can afford to buy that piece of kit, go get it. And then we'll talk about how to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't that the same story, buddy, that we had Brett on? Brett, yeah.
Same story. Yeah, same situation.
He told us about that. Yeah. So the radios that I have, which are the Baofeng UV5R 8 watts, I'm not going to say that somebody showed me how to unlock them to do something like that, because that would be wrong to do.
It's illegal.
But
yes.
But that if you were to do that, that now becomes a GMRS radio.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something there, Keith, that we need to make sure our listeners understand. During a declared emergency situation, if you're down to utilizing a two-way radio and that's your only means of communication, then it doesn't matter. All right. Nobody's going to come get you and write you a ticket or come confiscate your equipment. This is an emergency. Okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
So
the FCC rules state hey, during an emergency, when there's no other communications means available, do what you need to do. Don't put yourself in a worse situation simply because you're afraid to hit that push to talk button.
And I guess my point would be saying is that the inexpensive radios that I bought seem to be really well made, can be jailbroken to work like a ham radio.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll agree with you on the UV5Rs from made by Baofeng. There's several different models of those, but I've had a lot of success with utilizing that UV5R 8 watt. That's a great little radio, and you're right, they are built well. I haven't tried to drop one out of the boat into the lake and then see if it'll work. But, they're so inexpensive. They're $25, $30 a piece. Sometimes you can find a deal on them. They're water repellent to some level, but that's not waterproof by any stretch. But they're so inexpensive that, if something does happen to it, throw that sucker away and pick up the next one and go. So, I don't get paid a commission by Baofeng. I'm not an affiliate seller of their product directly. So that's a free plug.
But it could also be like a gateway radio for somebody to get really interested and learn how to use a radio to get into the bigger, more expensive ones, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it is.
So these things got all kinds of options on them. There's really more than that $25 to $30 worth of value to these things, especially when you think about the fact that this guy in this little community just used one to save, maybe a couple hundred people's lives. What kind of price tag do you put on that? But this UV5R 8 watt of mine was acquired after I had 4 of the 5 watt radios, and I can throw this little 771 antenna on this thing and reach a repeater that's 13 and a half miles away with no problem. That's a lot of distance out of a little 5 watt radio. That 8 watt radio does even better, but it's a very cheap, versatile piece of equipment.
$20 with all the trimmings, and if you want to spend $30, you can get a 2-pack, and you can even get other type of packs out there with those. I don't understand. One day we're going to have to talk about the whole repeater thing, because even after I've talked with Buddy and Jeremy about it, I still don't understand how that all works and why some people won't let you use them and all kinds of weird stuff about that. I don't get it. Maybe I'm not smart enough to understand it. I don't know.
But most of these repeaters are privately owned. So, the owner of that equipment is going to be the gatekeeper as far as its usage goes. But, I'm kind of with you in an emergency situation. It'd be nice if our neighbors were a little nicer with the use of that equipment, but it is theirs. And I don't like people flying my airplane, so I'm not going to try to fly anybody else's. But, the repeater itself is basically just an extension tool, for your outgoing signal or an incoming message. They're relatively simple to set up. Buddy and I have set up tactical repeaters that work really well. And depending on the equipment that we use for those tactical repeaters, we can rebroadcast well beyond that 13 and a half beyond line of sight capability with it. So I wouldn't poo-poo on the idea of getting used to hooking up to a repeater or using one or setting one up. There's a little bit of a learning curve with it, but after you build one, it all makes sense. It's like, oh, all this is two radios. One of them's receiving my call and the other one is retransmitting it.
Mm.
Piece of cake.
Bottom line, what's the lowest cost you could get away with building a repeater that actually works?
The most simple repeater. Let's go back to the homestead. Okay, let's forget about trying to reach the people in the next county or the next state. Let's extend our radio communications capabilities to work on our homestead. So if you were to take a pair of these bow fangs plus a couple of other attachments, you could set up a repeater system for less than $100 and extend your capabilities, or even mask some of your communications, which is a really valuable tactical piece to it. So there's a lot of capabilities there for under $100. Now you're not gonna get a lot of distance out of those smaller setups, but that's really not the plan. The plan is to, here again on the homestead, be able to extend my communications or mask part of my communications from the outside world and only transmit that signal the distance that I need to cover my homestead.
In the prepper world, we're all really concerned about, I don't want anybody to know this or that, so.
Well, it works as a good signal masking mechanism.
If you did have to defend your homestead a little bit, you've got a little bit with that, with these repeaters. But man, I will say they work great for under $100. It'll give you some reach. And then for a little over $1,000, you start stepping up to a lot of reach. So
yeah, you can get into some fancier setups with a lot more capability and be able to provide those repeater services to folks outside of your homestead. Some of these repeater systems that Buddy's mentioning here for the $1,000 plus range, you can get 40, 50 miles out of them if you're in pretty open terrain or outside of the downtown area where the skyscrapers are. You can get some pretty good range out of them. Very, very valuable tool. But that's something, if you invest that kind of money in that type of equipment, then the expectation is I'm using it well beyond, say, where my area of operation is. I want to be able to communicate outside of that and be able to receive communications from outside.
Right. And we're using them, just Rhonda and I, here at the homestead. We can talk to each other at the bee yard and not have to worry about, cell phone connection or anything like that. Because it's out in the woods. You can't get cell phone connection. It's very difficult. But,
yeah.
You flip on one of these bow fangs and you're talking like you're on a phone.
Yeah, that's right. So here's something else to consider since you brought it up. Cell phones are not necessarily a dead tool if we lose cell phone communications. So Buddy and I have been playing with this app called Rattlegram, using an ADS-B cable between our phones and these bow fangs. The Rattlegram app will allow you to type out a text message and transmit that over your radio to another receiver who's got the same system, and they can receive that text message. Now, the cool thing about this is it's transmitted as an audio signal, not a digital signal. So you can play with this even outside of an emergency situation. It's perfectly legal to transmit audio signals over GMRS or FRS, and even your ham freaks if you've got a ham license. So this is a really neat tool that you can use during peacetime operations and get familiar with it, and give you the ability to somewhat mask your message and cut down on traffic over a busy signal.
Your phone is texting to a radio. Your radio is somehow turning that into a signal.
That's right.
Which sends it to another radio, which sends it to a phone, back to a text again.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't these radios like Baofangs just have that capability of texting?
I don't know. They probably can't put that in there for $20 would be my guess. But the cool thing about
they would be selling radios like hotcakes, man.
Oh man, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there may be that capability out there. I don't know. But here's the thing to think about. You go buy the radio, the $20 radio, and it's either like a $15 or $20 cable that mates up between that and your device, and you're set, right? Now, Here's the cool thing. You don't have to have the cable. The only reason we have that we use the cable is so that I don't have to hold this phone up to the radio for it to work. Because here's how the app works. You type your text message in, and you hit the transmit button in the app on your phone, and it converts that text message over to an audio output. You remember the old dial-up sounds from? Are you old enough to remember dial-up internet?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So exactly. So that's what's happening inside of this app. It's converting all of these characters into those sounds, and your radio, if you hit your push to talk button on the radio while that thing is playing, then it'll pick it up and transmit it just like if you were talking, right? So the person on the other end has their phone up, and they've got a radio very close to their cell phone. And when that signal comes through and that audio sound is played, then that app, if it's open, is listening. It will receive that message and decode it for you. We've had a lot more success in sending and receiving these messages with a cable versus not using a cable, because you don't pick up all the background noise. Plus the radio gets, the beginning of the message all the way to the end. And we set the Vox setting on the radios at like 3, so that as soon as something goes into that input side on the radio, it keys up that push to talk button for you. You don't have to push it. So it goes through as soon as you hit that transmit button in the app. It's very effective. We've had a lot of success with it. There are limitations to it, like anything else. The programmers, the developers are still playing with it some, but the product that they have out there right now works pretty doggone good.
Yeah, and the only thing I don't like about it, it's really not that big an issue, because we have a workaround for it, but if somebody else has Rattlegram out there in your vicinity that you're sending it, they can actually read your messages. They can read, and same thing, we can read theirs. So, sure.
And that's if we're on the same frequency, right?
On the same frequency, there's a lot of things that play into it, but it's possible. But sure. The workaround for us is we have reports we can send that, unless they have the solution to our reports, then they're not going to break the code. So
the only missing piece in this communications conversation really after this is the PACE plan itself. And that's another big, long discussion, but PACE is short for primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. So there's these different signals that you and your family, or you and your team, would use in this comm plan to ensure that you can always talk to each other. And there's a lot to that. There's a big discussion to be had about PACE planning. But the good news is, I know a guy that's developed a program where you can set up your own PACE plan, very simple, and utilize it and get everybody in your group on the same page relatively fast. So we can save that for another time if you want to, but having a comm plan is definitely just as important as having the radio itself.
Yeah, that's a good point. The radio's first step, and then having a plan second.
Yep.
Well, I guess second, you need to really figure out how to use them, and then third would be the plan. There's so many different directions you can go with this. I know we're getting towards the end of our time here, but one thing I do want to touch on, and I want Jay to touch on, is, there's some limitations to these radios. We have people come to our classes that have some misconceptions on actually what the capabilities of radios are. So I think Jay knows exactly what I'm talking about here.
Yeah. Our number one question is, how far will these things reach? And the only answer we can give them is, well, it depends.
because they don't like that.
They don't like that answer. They want to know, no, how far will this thing reach? Well, you got to remember, we're talking about either a 5 or 8 watt radio that operates in 2 different frequency bands that have the capability of reaching out there, a fairly good distance. But there's a lot of factors that you have to consider when trying to figure out how far something will reach. And power isn't the only piece of that equation. There's also the terrain. There's also the, are you in town where there's a lot of buildings, a lot of RF magnets like power lines or big buildings or things of that sort? And then, what kind of antenna are you running? What does that look like? What's your ground plane situation? There's all these other things to nerd out on to enhance your communications capabilities during these emergencies. But it's always going to boil down to this: how far do you need it to reach? How far do you need to communicate? And that's something that individuals are going to have to figure out on their own. I can't answer that question for them, just like they can't answer that question for me. But if I know what my communication needs are, then I can get the equipment that will give me that kind of capability, and I just need to know what to look for. And then Buddy hit on this. Well, okay, I got this equipment. Now, how do I use it? So there's the training question. So Buddy and I host some radio training classes. We've got everything from the basic understandings of how to use these little Baofeng radios to building antennas to we've got a 100 series course on antenna theory. So we'll get into building some antennas, and then we've got a set of 4 classes in a 200 series where we're doing all kinds of other things like building a repeater, and pace planning, scanning, direction finding, all of these other very valuable skill sets to have if we're talking about the communications piece as a whole. So anyway, I'm sure Buddy can get people directed over to where that training is available when we have it.
I would love to see how you guys try and do something online, because there's a lot of folks that would like to take some of those classes that don't have them available in their area that could that can't make it to Oklahoma.
Yeah, and
come to Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, shit. It's because it's 100 degrees right now. No, I mean, we've talked about the online thing. Man, if you knew what we really were into, all these different things going on and stuff, it's kind of hard.
It's a lot of work. I get it. Yeah.
Well, it's so many hours in a day. But I'm working on another thing. I'm working on some classes where I'm going to hit the road. So I've asked Shay if, to consider the radio classes, because I can, a couple of these places, and Keith, they're going to be close to you. I got one that I'm finalizing some stuff. It'll be fairly close to you, to where
Missouri's a big place, man. What are you talking about? Close.
Yeah. Well, it's
you're 5.5 hours from me, aren't you? Something like that. Oklahoma City, right? Somewhere over there.
Yeah, somewhere in that area. So
it's 5.5 hours from my house to Oklahoma City, basically.
Yeah. Well, we'll be closer for this class, but maybe within a couple hours. So.
Yeah.
So the online option would be really nice, Keith. I prefer to teach in person, but to your point, it's tough to get a group, for example, to agree to a travel time and to dovetail into what Buddy says, as far as traveling and doing some training there. That's an option that we can explore depending on, how many folks want to put a group together and have us come out and teach. And really what would be ideal is, either a 1 full day or 2 full days of nothing but radio communications and run through, the entire curriculum, and then have some online resources available for them if they need to re-explore the material that we covered in the classes before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an option there.
I could say if people are on the Facebook group, if they want to instant message me, on the private side, where their location is and they're interested in training, we could try to set something up. It's nothing's, impossible, but, it costs to travel, definitely costs, and
individual training is going to be expensive for the trainee. Okay. Classes are always better. I think anybody, that's able to drive to your location would really benefit from the classes, no doubt about it.
And then, you're pretty savvy with the production end, so maybe we can work something out.
I dabble,
Yeah. So there we go.
I know it's probably not, it's probably not really the right way to jump into this a little bit. You don't have to go into it too deep, but let's say we had a total grid down. Let's say the United States had all 3 power grids go down. Who knows what happened? Who cares what happened? They're down, done. Everything's done. Could be the whole world. Could just be our country. How do I, 5.5 hours away from Buddy, how do I get in touch with him aside from getting in my vehicle and traveling 5.5 hours?
Sure. And that could be a challenge in itself, right?
Yeah.
If the power's down, then my gas pumps don't work either.
That's right.
So we can see where things can go south. And do I really want to spend fuel traveling 5.5 hours in a grid down situation, even if I've got the fuel to get there, because I might not be able to refuel once I'm there.
Good
so,
point.
Here's something to consider. Preparing for an emergency doesn't mean preparing the day of. Preparing means that I've got the kit and the education to run my gear when something goes bad. It's not an if anymore. It's a when is it going to happen? And I don't have time to prepare while the disaster is going on. So the thing that I need to have in place, one, is the kit itself and the capability to use it. So I need to get educated as soon as I can on the equipment that I have. So I'm familiar with how to use it and I'm comfortable using it. And then I've got to explore options on, how do I communicate with someone that's 5.5 hours away, drive time wise, and just check on them. It could be a family member. I mean, you don't have to check in on Buddy. He'll probably be all right. But
I hope so.
Yeah. But to your point, we probably want to check, on family members that are geographically separated.
So nowadays, that's a big possibility. I mean, my children are in Austin, Texas. That's a lot more than 5.5 hours.
Oh man, get them out of there.
Yeah. Run away.
They're grown. They're going to do what they're going to do,
Yeah. No, the thing that I would want to check on as a comms expert, what I want to do is be able to plan for these calm out situations well in advance of it ever happening. So what I might look at are there ham repeater stations between Oklahoma City and somewhere in Missouri? And the answer is yes. So I can spend a little bit of time doing some legwork and communicating with these ham radio operators and ask them some basic questions of, hey, in the grid down situation, or, what are your preparations? Are you planning on firing up a generator and getting communications going again? And if you do that, what frequencies or frequency sets could we expect to find you on? And, what's your pace plan look like? And really develop some relationships with those that have some of this equipment that we might not have. That's what I would do. And now, we can do all that legwork up front. We don't have to wait for something to go bad and try to figure it out. That's worst case scenario, right?
Yeah, and I've done some consultations with some of our listeners, and Jay, you have too, with the same question. How I've got somebody my daughter's 2.5 hours away or whatever it may be. How do I talk to them? And we get that question all the time in classes. And that's why I want him to go into this expectation thing. But one of the listeners in the conversation I've had with him lately, he was talking about he joined the local ham club. He's not a ham radio operator. It's on his list to do. and a goal of his, but he's gone in and he's learned a lot about it. And yes, he's the same things you brought up, Jay, was, talk to him in the grid down situation, because he has family multiple states away that he wants to, still communicate with. So that's a great point.
Okay. So logistically wise, let's say the grid goes down and all of the repeaters, the people who own them, have fired them up, got the generators going between me and Buddy. How does that work? Do I get on a radio and call a repeater and ask them to call another repeater and then another repeater? I mean, how does that work? How does the signal get to Buddy?
Well, that's a question that's going to have to be answered in that same type of discussion vein with those ham station owners. Without understanding how that ham repeater station is set up, it's really difficult to answer that question.
Oh, okay.
But what you want to recognize.
So what you're saying is it's not an automatic thing.
It's not an automatic thing, right? And the other thing to think about here is you don't necessarily need a repeater to get from one side of the country to the other with a radio communication. Everybody with a radio is essentially a relay station.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to know how to relay. Now
that's where that base plan comes in. Calm windows, things of that nature. Where
exactly. So what you might want to consider as part of that, emergency communication piece is transmitting in the blind. Say, hey, this is, for example, hey, this is Keith. I'm in nowhere, Missouri, and I'm trying to reach a friend of mine in Oklahoma City by the name of Buddy, right? And transmit that signal. And if somebody, hopefully what would happen here is somebody between you and Oklahoma City would receive that message and retransmit it and then be able to come back. So, there's some understanding. There's some understanding that has to be had as a radio operator and how all that works. But it's a doable deal.
Yeah, until you get to the guy halfway between. It's like, okay, we can do that. You're going to need to send me 30 days worth of storable food, some water filters, a whole box, a couple of cases of 22 ammo, and maybe a little bit of 7.62, maybe a little bit of 9mm. Throw in a handgun, and we'll have that.
Sure, no problem. What address do I send that to?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'll be right over with that. Yeah.
It'll be in the middle of the night. I can tell you that much. Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting. Because I think that I can definitely tell you from my end of it, because I don't know anything about the radios, that sort of thing, but I can definitely tell you that the movies and the TV shows of the apocalyptic type, post-apocalyptic type movies and that sort of thing, they got us thinking wrong, because on those shows, everybody talks to everybody. Everybody, oh yeah, I got a cousin over in Los Angeles. He's coming this way next week. Well, how does that person even know that? In a grid down situation, you're not talking to people all the way across the country. I think they got us twisted as to how bad the situation would really be communication wise, on these TV shows and movies and things that we watch. They say, oh, it's our only understanding of a grid down situation is what we see.
Oh no, you're 100% right. When Buddy and I can roll up into an emergency disaster talk and ask them what their comm plan is, and they look at us like we just grew another head out of our shoulders, and these are supposed to be folks that know what they're doing, then we know that the rest of the general public is probably even further behind on understanding, and it's not, I'm not blaming them for that. This is not normal day, everyday operation needs. This is,
people don't know what they don't know.
Right. This is for emergency use. And hopefully I'm not having to deal with an emergency every day where the comms are out. So, but, it's an acquired skill set, and it requires some training. It requires, staying on top of it. I've got to study it. I've got to stay on top of it.
We talked about distance before, and you were saying about, everything matters, buildings and line of sight and trees and mountains. And if you're on if you're on the flats of Kansas, how far can it go? That kind of thing. You see a lot in movies, like we were just mentioning a second ago, movies and and TV shows and stuff, you'll see people, military people and other people talking to other people like up in the mountains and stuff. What are they using? Or let me ask you this, in the military, are you able to go and talk to people through radios, even when there's hills and mountains and buildings and all that sort of thing? How are those radios getting through all that?
Yeah. So, without jumping off into details as far as what kind of military equipment we have, let's sum it up with this. Our military operators that are performing missions in those mountainous areas oftentimes have what we call a BLOS communication system, a beyond line of sight communications capabilities. So the signals may be a lower band HF that are bouncing off of the ionosphere like a NIVIS type setup, or that might be a part of a mesh network where I'm bouncing communications off of an air asset to get over the mountains. I may be using a radio that's connected to a box that's just in the back of an airplane. In the KC-135, we had a box that was in the back of the bird on some of our missions, and its only purpose was to serve as an airborne relay station. And we didn't have anything to do with it other than turning it on. But that provided that beyond line of sight communications capabilities for our guys on the ground to talk to each other, as well as providing that communications link between the guys on the ground and other assets, other air assets that may be out beyond line of sight. So this, here again, we're talking about the use of a repeater or repeater capable type communications that allow that signal to get from one device to another or bounce off the ionosphere or something like that. But yes, absolutely, there's the ability even for civilians to utilize, if they're creative, and implement a BLOS type communication system to get over and around those types of obstacles.
Yeah, and keep in mind all the technology we see today, it was once, top secret stuff in the military. So a lot of the technology, the cell phone, all that stuff was the military had it years and years and years ago, and then they released it to the public. So you can get some of the military grade technology, but you're going to pay for it. It's very expensive, but it's out. I was
just thinking the same thing when he was talking about that. Yeah. Yeah. Ignorance is bliss, because I have always been so comfortable knowing that should the grid go down, all I need to do is buy a couple of radios and I can talk to everybody everywhere. And listening to you guys talk, that ain't the way it goes.
Yeah, we didn't want to crush. We don't want to crush everybody, but
you crushed my dreams, man.
Yeah, you bet. It's best to learn these lessons now.
That's true.
When it doesn't matter, and I've always said it. I say it all the time. I guess go out there and train, get the stuff, and go train with it. Because if you don't, like Jay said earlier, you've got that piece of kit. And you've got it's that rucksack, that 1 million pound rucksack that you packed a lot of stuff in it and repacked it and put more shit in it, and then you go throw it on your back, and when you really need to, and it just crushes you. Go out there and train.
Give me the fire starter and the knife and my pew pew, and we're ready to go.
There you go. You don't need 80 million ways to start a fire. I mean, come on.
Jay, how do people get in touch with you?
I've got Cloverleaf Precision here in Yukon, Oklahoma. That's our primary business, and you can find us on Facebook or find us online at cloverleafprecision.com. And then the other entity that we're pushing is our nonprofit called Scout 46, and you can find us on Facebook and reach out to us through Messenger that way as well. And there'll be more to come on Scout 46. I hope we can all get together for another show in the not too distant future about what this NGO nonprofit is going to do. A really, really cool deal, and might be something of great interest to your listeners.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It's very exciting. It's exciting shit. So yeah, definitely need to do that.
We very much appreciate it, Jay. And like I said last time, you're always welcome on the show anytime. So thanks for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So Jay, final thoughts?
Get a radio, learn how to use it, get with somebody like us to help you develop a good pace plan, or at least understand how to put one together, and start practicing. Join a local radio club or an online, like Facebook, social media type radio club. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And, it doesn't take everybody in the household to become a radio expert to have a household that's proficient in radio communications. So don't let that scare you off. Go get the equipment, go get the training on how to utilize it. It'll be money well spent, and you'll have a nice piece of kit and some training that could save your life, your family's lives, or maybe your neighborhood.
My prepper brothers and sisters, when the grid goes dark, most of the world will vanish into silence. But you still have a voice and hope because you took the time to learn the skills, gather the gear, and build the connections that keep people alive when everything else fails. Radio is about community. It's about that farmer 2 towns over telling you that the river is rising. It's a voice in the night confirming that your family made it through. It's hope traveling unseen through the air. When you key that mic, you're not just sending out words. You're sending out confirmation and resilience. You're telling the world that you're still here, still strong, still fighting, and somewhere someone will hear you and know that they're not alone either. In the end, it's not the loudest voice that survives. It's the one that can still be heard. Stay prepped, stay happy. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Rivers winding round words in my head. Shivering pines say that summer is dead. Chest feels hollow and my hands are numb. Do my best to swallow all the things I've done. Break your back, but you still don't have bread. You won't go back on the things that you said. You bleed your heart out, and it takes every drop. You've come too far now to ever stop. Wash me in the water, and I'll never go back. Even when I'm walking to dead man pass. You can't trust a man 'cause he'll just let you down. Crooked and twisted, we grow from the ground. From dust we came in, dust we shall return.